Good Friday morning. It is the 29th day of December, 2017. This is Tim Radford on WKRK 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, and worldwide we're at country.am. And this is our final show with Sheriff Derek Palmer. For this year. For the year. You were waiting on that,
just for this year.
For the year. Our next show will be in 2018, which will be next Friday.
There you go.
It's hard to believe that this year has come and gone so quickly. And you've had a pretty busy year, haven't you?
I have. It's been busy. I was going to try to get some stats for us this morning, but I'll get them for you next week. So we do still have a few days left. Apologize to everybody out there, too. I've had a cold, and so I don't sound like myself today. Been sick for almost a week now.
Well, when Gaitha called on Party Line this morning talking about you, I thought from her words that you were in the hospital.
Well, I talked to Gaitha the other day, and I told her, that I had been down under the weather, and so I appreciate her checking on me and making sure everything is all right. But I got sick last Sunday, I guess it was, Saturday night one.
I knew you weren't feeling too good Friday morning when you were here. You were starting to get it.
I was starting to get something then, and then I was sick all through Christmas and made it okay through Christmas. And then after Christmas, I got down with it, and I think it was the day before yesterday. I didn't get out of bed all day long and kind of laid around the house all day. But I'm starting to get up and about and going now again, so hopefully I'll get over it before too long.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, the holidays we're on the back side of the holidays. I hope you and your family had a good Christmas.
We did.
Together.
We did. This was the first year my wife and I have been married for over 20 years, and this is the first year that we didn't have to run all Christmas. I know people out there understand what I'm talking about, but especially when you got big families and multiple families and in-laws and all those kind of things, sometimes it feels like you're running a marathon come Christmas trying to get everywhere and all the different locations and all the places you need to be. But this was the first year that we just kind of relaxed, and didn't run everywhere, and it was a good feeling.
That is a good feeling. I mentioned that on my show, I guess Christmas Day, because I used to dread Christmas, and then I realized I had gotten so caught up in the hustle and bustle,
right?
And it had become a point where it was a date, there was a deadline to buy gifts by, and then I realized that that's not what it's all about, and I had to rethink what Christmas really means. And
the only thing that was bad about Christmas is I was expecting a good snowfall for Christmas morning, and I got up and there was just a few flurries, and I thought, okay, that'll be okay because we're going to get a good snow this coming weekend here. And then they was showing all this snow that was coming, and now it's no snow in the forecast. And
before our show, he accused me of breaking his snow globe.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he stuck around and got my snow globe and broke it, so I can't shake it anymore.
He shakes his snow globe at home, and boom, here comes snow.
Right. So since Tim don't like it, I think he sabotaged me. So if we don't get any snow, it's all Tim's fault.
All my fault. That's right. Yeah, they were calling for snow and later on this week, and the chances have diminished quite a bit. Now it's just going to be really cold.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. One thing we know for sure it's going to happen this weekend is it's going to get very cold. And so if you're going out to all the different events, Possum Drop going on this weekend, and different New Year's Eve events, just know that it's going to be down in the 20s and teens.
Yeah, looking at Sunday night into Monday morning, 16 degrees, and then Monday night into Tuesday morning, it's 9 degrees.
9 degrees, yeah, going to be in single digits. So.
That's cold. So we got to take preparations for things like make sure your animals are in good care, elderly and young, those who are susceptible to cold weather, make sure they're taken care of, and make sure your water doesn't
and a reminder, too, for the senior citizens out there, we're still doing our firewood program. So if you're low on wood or you need wood for your home, be sure and call and let us know before this cold weather gets here so we can get out and get you some wood there to your house. And we want to make sure that our senior population is taken care of. If you know any seniors that needs checking on or needing help, we do our seniors call-out program also at the sheriff's office. So if you can call the detention center and let them know you want a senior put on that program, they'll call daily and check on them and make sure they're all right. And that's a service that we do through the sheriff's office.
And one thing, too, make sure that your heating is taken care of and that you have smoke detectors and fire alarms. And it's a sad story because one of our dear listeners recently lost her home a couple of weeks ago, and she didn't want her name broadcast, and I respect her privacy like that. But I was wanting to call and check on her to see if there was anything that we can do to help raise funds to help her recover from that. And but she says, I don't want to beg for money.
Right.
So, but she lost her home because of fire. But thankfully, she had just had a fire detector installed in her home, so she and her daughter and her animals got out okay, and they were saved from that. So
yeah, that's the important thing. As bad as it is and as tragic as it is, homes can be replaced. I know there's some personal items that can't be replaced. I know there's some things you lose that's devastating when you have a fire. But if you lose a life, that definitely cannot be replaced. So as long as people are safe about it, can have those smoke detectors and get out of their homes, it's very important to do that, because most people don't realize that if you're home asleep and a fire breaks out while you're asleep, you can be overtaken by those fumes and asphyxiate in your sleep and not even realize anything's going on.
With these really, really cold temperatures in the single digits like Monday night, those heaters are going to be working overtime. Make sure not to have your space heaters too close to your walls.
And in addition to smoke detectors, also remember to install carbon monoxide. I'm sorry, I got my tongue tied today.
You're still thinking about high school days.
I am. But those detectors also. And the important thing is, and I know it's needful a lot of times because we used to do it in our home too, is people bring kerosene heaters inside and to warm their additional heat when it gets in single digits. But understand those put out fumes, and you can be overtaken by those fumes also. And so if you're going to use kerosene heaters and stuff inside your home, that's very dangerous, and we don't recommend doing that. But if you find the need that you have to do that, please make sure that it's well ventilated, that the air can escape and fresh air can get in.
I didn't know for the longest time the difference in gas log heating, because some are vented and some are unvented.
Right.
And so if you have those unvented gas logs, you need to crack a window or something to let some oxygen get back in there. So, but those carbon monoxide detectors are good for gas logs as well, correct?
Right, they are. But
it was heartbreaking, because I think you know enough about our radio station that we are pretty close with our listeners, and it kind of broke my heart because she was telling me about the story about how the fire happened, and that she even had a Christmas card for me with some money inside.
Right.
Sweet lady. Yeah. I love her to death, and it broke my heart knowing that she lost her home. But I'm so happy knowing that there was no lives lost in that fire.
And we've had a couple of fires here recently with homes, and as cold weather comes, that is going to happen. Some other safety tips to think about too: if you are using wood heat, be sure and periodically have those flues cleaned out, have your chimney clean. The creosote can build up in there, and when you get a hot fire going, it could ignite your chimney. And what happens is, a lot of times it's not cracks in the chimney that causes your house to catch on fire, but it's when the creosote burns and comes out the top of the chimney, it falls back on your roof and sets your shingles on fire. So that's typically how a lot of those creosote fires start and burn your house. So it's very important, to keep those flues cleaned out, keep those chimneys cleaned out. And if you haven't done so in a while, now would be a good time to do it before that cold weather gets here this weekend.
All right. Tri-County Early College had done a public service message here on WKRK reminding people about how important it is to have those smoke detectors installed. And this lady in particular had one installed but had stopped working, so the early college folks had put one in days before the fire happened. So that is so important. And a lot of times, like at my house, I have fire detectors and smoke detectors, but I don't always remember to change the batteries in them. And a lot of them beep and have that annoying little beep. That's the reminder. It's time to change the battery, because you never know when something could happen to your home.
And if you're like me, a lot of times when it beeps, you don't have a battery at your home. So you go and unplug it and intended on going to get a battery, and then you forget about it. So it's always a good time to check. Anytime you have cold weather coming, it's a good time to go back and just recheck everything. And it being the first of the year is a good time to check those smoke detectors and fire alarms and make sure that everything's working properly in your home.
We usually try our best to remind folks when we change back to Eastern Daylight Time to do that. But sometimes, like if you're like me, you hear the message over and over again, but you fail to act on it. So it's a good time to act on it.
If you're like me, you give the message over and over again and still forget to act on it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what else is going on at the Sheriff's Office this week? The Sheriff's Office has recovered from there are a few days off.
Right.
And back into normal schedule, correct?
Right. For the most part.
For the most part.
Yeah, of course, you always have vacations and sickness and all those kind of things that goes on this time of year. But for the most part, we're back to business as normal. We'll be off Monday, of course, for New Year's. The office will be closed. But as far as patrol efforts and 911, all detention center, we're open 24/7, as you can imagine. For that, we can't take off, but we're constantly open. We are in the process. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I want to mention it again. We're in the process of helping Andrews, the town of Andrews, with their police department up there and getting things up and running and providing law enforcement services there for Andrews. And they're going through a transition period. Where they've lost several officers that's gone to other departments, other places around to work, and so they've got holes in their shifts. So we're helping fill in there and help them, and so we want to do what we can, especially on that end of the county, to help our population there in Andrews and surrounding areas. So we're doing a lot extra than we normally do, and so it's just that time of year that we need to pitch in and try to help each other.
And a lot of people don't realize, too, when like we're at home celebrating Christmas and Thanksgiving with our families, that there is a group of folks who are still on duty 24 hours a day to protect those so that we can enjoy our Thanksgivings and Christmases, and all the way from the 911 dispatch center to all these first responders, emergency folks,
detention center,
and the
EMS,
So we just want to shout out to them and say thank you for your services, even those in the medical field at the hospitals.
Right.
You just can't shut down a hospital because it's a Christmas day.
Many years I did work through Christmas and work through Thanksgiving and birthdays and all those kind of things, and there were many years that, like on Thanksgiving, for example, I would come off my shift and go home and eat lunch with the family and then go back to work, you know. And so people don't realize that a lot of times the sacrifices that law enforcement and fire and EMS and medical personnel and dispatch and detention and all those kind of folks give just to serve their community. And I agree with you. I want to thank those folks that have been out there doing that. I'm in a position now, thank goodness, that I can kind of go home, be with my family, and take some time off. But it took many years to get here, many years of suffering through those things to get to that point. And when you lose those days and you lose those birthdays and you lose that time, you can't get them back. You can't go back and recover those. So I tell my officers, you know, that even when you're working on those holidays, please try to take time to go home. Take time to, you know, don't miss that birthday if you can help it, you know. And
I think anytime there's a snowstorm and power outages and cable TV outages, internet outages, those folks are so quick to respond to, even on holidays, to get the utilities back up and running again. So I don't think we appreciate them until we don't have the service that we depend on.
Yeah, and that's true. You know, when, you know, the power goes off and you have people. I kind of chuckled the other day when I was thinking about this when the power went off here in Murphy. I don't remember if it was last week or week before when it was that went off, but some people were talking about, they were posting on Facebook that they've tried several times calling the power company and it keeps ringing busy, you know, and I just kind of chuckled because I thought that's because other people are reporting it, and if it's ringing busy, you probably don't need to report it.
Right,
know?
Exactly.
But you know, they don't think about those things, and we complain about how long it takes to get the power on and all that kind of stuff. But you also got to remember that, like with the power companies and stuff, they have people at home they have to assemble to come out and work on these things, and then have to track down the problem and identify the problem and come up with a plan to fix it, and then activate on that plan and start fixing things. And I think our power company, especially here in Murphy, I think does a great job on getting the power back on. I know Murphy Power Board, they are always quick to get the power back on.
I hear so many compliments for them.
And I tell you, I just can't praise those guys enough over there for the work they do and getting the power back on and keeping it on. I lived in other places, other parts of the county and other counties in the state, and I can tell you that I've went days without the power being turned back on just because a tree fell across it or things that's happening. So I don't like to hear people complain, especially about Murphy Power Board, because I think Murphy does a great job on getting their power on.
Yeah, and I know with the last snowstorm, there were so many different outages. I know Blue Ridge Mountain EMC was they had to call in some extra support from southern Georgia. I think they had over 800 different spots that were broken, and some of those are hard to get to. And that one spot will affect hundreds, if not thousands, of customers. So there were some folks that were without power for 3 or 4 days until they could restore all those broken spots, and they cover a huge area too. So, but it does take time to make all those repairs, and of course they have their priority system in place that people that have medical needs are on the top of the list, and then just to try to get the biggest population back on.
Well, what people don't understand also, especially about power, and I'm no expert on it by any means, but when you think about this and just using some logic to it, people say, well, it's just a flip of the switch, basically getting that back on. But what they don't understand is when you flip that switch, you're sending power down that line. And so if you've got other places where lines are down or other places that people are working, you can't just flip that switch and flip the power on. You've got to make sure it gets completed and everything gets done before you flip that power on. And so, there's other safety issues and other things in concern with that. And you may be inconvenienced, and there may be some very real medical necessities. And like you say, people know where those are, and dispatch is aware of those things. But there's a safety issue involved in that too about getting the power on. And I think they do. Like I say, Blue Ridge GMC also. I didn't mention them a while ago, but I want to mention them also. I think they just do a wonderful job around here for keeping the power on and keeping it going. And it's one of those things that we kind of take for granted sometimes. You don't realize how many times you flip that light switch until the power's not on, and then you realize how much you use it.
That's true. And as citizens, we can be prepared. I know a lot of times when power goes off, we depend on our computers to look up phone numbers, but just things like having the phone number to your power company, stick it on your fridge or somewhere you can easily find it. We have it posted on WKRK's website, the number to all the power companies in the area. And I try to usually post that number again on Facebook if I am anticipating that there might be power outages due to weather, so that folks will have it handy.
Well, I know we mention this every time we talk about this type of thing, but please, I just want to remind people, don't call dispatch to get the number for the power board or the number for this or the number for that. It's there's a 411 system. You can do that if you want just information. You can dial 411 and get that information. So don't use our 911 center for that. Those folks are very busy when these events are going on, and even on a normal day, they're busy down there. I was watching just the other night when I was feeling better. I believe it was last night. I was out just riding around and had went up to Andrews to check on those folks up there and was riding through town and checking on buildings and stuff. And as I was up there, I got to watching the CAD in my car on the computer screen, and most times it was 10 to 15 calls on the screen going on in the county at one time, And so I was sitting there thinking about, how busy dispatch is and how much they keep going all the time. And so you may not think it's a big deal to call and ask for a number, but those folks have emergencies going on. Oh, I dropped my lid. They have emergencies and different things going on down there, and so it takes time away from others.
I think a lot of times when people think they're calling 911, they are just imagining this huge room full of telemarketers like you see on TV, that there's 20 or 30 people in one room just waiting for a phone to ring. But that's not the case. There's not the budget for that kind of. There's 2 or 3 people there usually, and trying to juggle several emergencies.
Yeah, when you look at bigger cities and you look at larger places, they have what they call, and we did it during the eclipse, where they have a call intake center, and where you have a group of dispatchers taking calls, coming in and sorting through those, and then handing emergencies off to other dispatchers that are actually dispatching people back and forth. We don't have the luxury of doing that in Cherokee County. We have typically 2 or 3 people in the consoles there at one time, but every one of them are taking calls and dispatching calls and doing multitasking. And so we don't have anybody designated of just taking calls. And so that puts a real strain on them when they've got fire trucks on one side and ambulances on the other, and law enforcement all calling and having radio traffic, and them trying to talk to someone on the phone and wanting to know what the number to, the town hall in Murphy is. And so it gets very distracting a lot of times for our dispatchers.
And I saw somebody had posted on Facebook last night, and I am recently an iPhone user, and I did not know this, You have an iPhone or a Droid?
I have a Droid.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So supposedly, if you
Our
have
IT guy won't let us use iPhones. He says they're of the devil.
Yeah, Kevin's a little grumpy sometimes. Have you noticed
Yeah,
that?
I've noticed that. Yeah.
But it said that if you know the lock button on your phone, if I do that, it just turns my screen off.
Right.
But if I hit it 5 times, it brings up a special phone screen that has emergency SOS on it.
Huh.
I could slide that over, and supposedly it sends my location to the local 911 dispatch center.
Well, when we go off the air, we'll try it.
I want to try that because that would be if there's an emergency where somebody cannot talk,
Right.
and they need help, or if they're locked in a trunk of a car, someone's kidnapped them
Right.
or something. I want to try that. But normally I just get the slide to power off. But when I do the 5 times, there's an SOS emergency. Well, I want to try that when we get off the air and see what actually happens.
Yeah, we'll not do it on the radio. We'll call dispatch and let them know it's coming, so it's not an emergency, and make sure they're not busy doing other things before we do that.
That sounds good. But I know there are a lot of iPhone users, and sometimes you see those Facebook memes or Facebook stories that are fake news, but. But I was surprised to see that screen pop up when I hit that 5 times.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I wanted to test that. And
Does that do that for all phones or just the iPhone?
Yeah, from what I read, it was just the iPhone.
Okay.
But maybe it's worth trying on the Android too, and we'll find out. But if that's something that is actually true and it sends the actual location of where the phone is.
Well, I do know that when you call 911 off of a cell phone, there is a triangulation that occurs on that, and on our screen in the dispatch center, on our mapping screen, it does pop up on the map an approximate location of where you are, and that's just on a regular 911 call from a cell phone. So it doesn't tell us who it is or what you're driving or anything like that, but it does give us an approximate location of where that call is coming from.
Basically, anybody with a cell phone has options that they can choose. Does it help 911 if location services is turned on that phone?
Yes and no. I mean, there's some things we can use with that on that location services. But like I say, with dialing 911, it automatically triangulates that. And then we have to have emergency situations. We can't do it for just anybody's phone anytime we want. We have to have emergency situations to do it. But we can use your number and actually call the phone company and have them triangulate to a certain phone to find out, where that phone is currently located. So even if it doesn't show up and services are turned off, we can still get that information through the phone company.
I know that the text to 911 is still a work in progress.
Right.
What's the latest on that? I know that
it's available.
It is available.
Yeah, it's available. You can text to 911, and we encourage people not to use text to 911 unless, of course, you're hearing impaired or something of that nature. Or like you say, you're in those situations where you can't talk and you need to get information
in your house, you're hiding under a bed.
Yeah, or, somebody's nearby or maybe you're in a bank and it's being robbed, but you can't talk on the phone. You can slip a text under the desk or something like that. You can still do the text to 911. It's a little bit more difficult, is the reason why dispatch doesn't particularly like it. There's some other steps you have to go through and some other things to get that translated and to get the conversation going. And they have to, of course, type, in addition to add notes to CAD and all those kind of things. And then you have to, ask for particular information and get it typed back in and back and forth. It's just a little bit more time consuming to do that. But there are needs for that, and there are times that's appropriate. But
usually when you call 911, the dispatcher needs you on the phone so they can gather pertinent information about how they can help you.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of times with the texting, there's not that person. You can't hear the anguish in the voice.
That's what I started to say. You can't hear the voice inflection. And so if someone calls in for a domestic, for example, by calling in, not only do they hear the inflection of the voice as far as how desperate that person is for help, but also they're able to hear things in the background. They can hear other things going on, other people screaming, other people saying things. In the event of, somebody shoots or whatever, they can hear all that in the background. You don't have that luxury on texting. You already knows what it says. And the other problem with texting is that you don't know who's on that other line. They can say they're anybody. So you don't know who that is. They could be a victim call in, and then the suspect can take the phone away from them and continue the conversation to deflect it or change it in some way. So those are little issues and problems with that text to 911. But it is a necessity, and there are times that you need it, and especially those folks that are hearing impaired, it's a great thing for them, that they're able to get information out that they need to get out.
But the preferred method is to call in if you have an emergency.
It is the preferred method.
I know we grow up with a generation of kids that they don't like talking, so let's just not make that a lazy thing just to text 911 an emergency because it's more convenient. So, but yeah, I'm of that age group, I think, where we, have, I don't know. I do text more than I talk now. I really do.
I think I do too a lot of times.
But some situations, that voice is really necessary to convey your message.
Yeah.
What big plans are there for the Sheriff's Office for the year 2018?
Well, it's re-election year.
It is re-election year.
Yeah. So for my personal plans is getting geared up, and filing time will be in February, and get filed, and primary typically will be in May, and the election will be in November. So just trying to get geared up from that, getting stats together, and getting all those things that you need for election year. But one of the things that, as far as the office itself that's going on, is we are now to a place and gotten to the place, the office, where we've gotten to a I don't know how to word it, more a stable place, I guess, a big way of putting it. And 3 years into this, we've got a stable office, we've got a stable place, we are making great progress on things around the county. What I plan on doing for this coming year is I want to do, especially with it being election year, is getting a lot more information out there as to what the Sheriff's Office has accomplished and what we're doing for the upcoming year. And so we'll just play that by ear and see how frequent we need to put those things out and what information we need to put out. But I want to get a lot more information out about what we've been doing. One of the things I hear from the public is that they appreciate the fact of, like WKRK and talking every Friday and just talking about things that's going on around the county and what's happening. Because the voters out there want to know, people want to know what's happening around the county. And so I think by just putting that information out there and people know what's going on, people don't have the need of making assumptions and guessing about what people are doing or what's happening. We want to put everything out there where it's open and honest and people can view what we're doing and what's going on. And that's why I'm putting all these stats and numbers and stuff together. I've been compiling those for the last 2 or 3 years and going to put all this stuff out. And as this year comes up, we're going to give everybody a synopsis of what we've done for the last 4 years and just let them know where we're at.
Very good. I think transparency is so important in especially government situations,
right?
Whether it be your job, commissioners, or town government. And one of the things we've started doing is videotaping or broadcasting live those meetings, because if I were to just sit there and watch the meeting and write down notes, then try to interpret that, people are getting my perspective of how that meeting happened. So I love being there and just letting people watch exactly what has happened and what's being said and the body language used by the people on those government boards.
Well, one thing I've learned about people too, and I learned this years ago, but I've been more so in the last few years, is sometimes people may not like what you say, or they may not like your answer, or they may not like what you're doing, but they appreciate the fact that you talk to them.
Right.
They appreciate the fact that you're open and honest about what's going on and what's happening. And most people that I found, even though they may not like your answer, appreciates the fact that you will give them an answer and that you will talk to them. So that's what I've tried to do as sheriff, is tried to address everybody's needs and concerns, and if they have a problem, talk to them about it and try to address that problem. And at the end of the day, they may still not like the answer to that, but at least I've taken the time to address them and talk to them about their problem. And I think that people do appreciate that.
You don't always have to agree. Sometimes you have to just agree to disagree and still part as friends. And
that's correct.
That's just to stay professional, and the fact that you're talking with folks, people do appreciate that.
And one thing I'm proud of, though, and I know that some people may not agree with this, may not like it, but I am proud of the fact of that. I really tried in the last 3 years and going on to my 4th year here, is tried to treat everybody fairly and the same. Didn't matter if you was Democrat or Republican or Independent, or if you voted for me or if you didn't, or supported me or you didn't. If you come to my office and you had a need, I've tried to help you the best I could. And it doesn't make any difference to me about where you stand on the political spectrum. And I think people appreciate that fact also.
All right. Well, Sheriff, I see our time has quickly gotten away with us again today.
Of course. It always does.
Yeah, we seem to talk quite a bit on this show. Anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, I just wanted to tell everybody to be safe for New Year's Eve, and remember those cold temperatures out there. And if you go out and you do outdoor activities like the possum drop and other things that are going on, be sure and wear layers of clothing and dress warmly.
Very good, Sheriff. Thank you very much. You're tuned to 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, and worldwide at country.am. We are WKRK.